I got this shirt in high school and it really doesn't fit as good as it used to. Reason I visited Buy More, a ghost station in the Hamburg U-Bahn network. But maybe a video on Germany's longest subway is perhaps worth diving into some other time. Because you know, all this footage totally isn't just from that video, and I'm slowly making a backlog of videos for the sake of consistency. So instead, let's extend our scope and talk about the channel's namesake, S-Bahn Lines and Systems. After all, this is Tales from the S-Bahn, I figured today we could get a bit more RM transit with it and discuss 5 different lines, or even whole S-Bahn systems that either got completely canned or, in the last one's case, never even had a chance to get off the ground. I don't have a swanky countdown transition or anything, so let's just count these down manually. 2008 YouTube style, gamers. The first line I want to talk about is the Erfurt S-Bahn system, which consisted of a whopping singular unelectrified line. This isn't to be confused with the Erfurt Stadtbahn, which is still alive and well. No, the Erfurt S-Bahn, certainly is a rail service that doesn't exist anymore. Running from 1976 to 1995, this line made kind of an upside down question mark shape through the city as it traveled from the central station to the Berliner Straße station. There were only 2 intermediate stops, though one was at Erfurt Nordbahnhof, so yay connectivity. The name S-Bahn was never actually used in advertising for this line, but rather just kind of colloquially in some internal documents. However, unlike on most traditional German S-Bahn systems, most of the trains on the Erfurt line were double-decker. Kind of reminds me of some of the Zurich S-Bahn routes, actually. Ultimately, though, this line was a victim of reunification. Erfurt, after all, is in Thuringia, or at least it is unless they decide to secede, which hey, I wouldn't blame them, fuck the AFD. But transport needs for the Erfurt area seemed to change a bit after reunification, and this singular line just wasn't competitive with the existing tram network. The last Erfurt Totally Not S-Bahn train ran in 1995, and a dedicated portion of the route to Berliner Straße was closed in 2003. Moving on, let's go to the city that popularized the idea of ghost lines and ghost stations on the whole, Berlin. That's not me crapping on them either. They really are like a global hub for that kind of stuff. When the city got divided by the Berlin Wall, some U-Bahn and S-Bahn lines were affected as well, leading to borderline tracks and stations either being shut down completely or heavily monitored, with intense special provisions put on West German trains that had to cross through the east. It's a story that's perhaps best told in maps, and while Berlin is by no means a perfect city nowadays, it seems like the transit projects since reunifications have really helped stitch it back together. Just please bring more tram lines to the west. Speaking of lines killed by the Berlin Wall, and this one has never recovered, let's talk about the Friedrichsruh. First over to 1913, this route spanned from Wannsee towards Teltow and is quite literally a ghost railway. And by that I mean it was literally meant to serve cemeteries. The main original goal for this line was to transport actual dead bodies out of Berlin city limits, because local cemeteries were filling up around the turn of the last century. Despite having a ton of single trackage, this line was actually electrified in 1928, and S-Bahn service began shortly afterwards. So until World War II, this line actually featured trains carrying both live and dead passengers. While dead body trains would stop in the early 50s, S-Bahn services wouldn't stop until 1961 when, you guessed it, the Berlin Wall was constructed by the Eastern government. And then after reunification, even with a push from the literal Protestant Church of Berlin-Brandenburg to restart service, the line was just never revived. A lot of the disused infrastructure still exists today, and apparently it's a pretty good hiking trail though. There's even a mostly intact S-Bahn ghost station, one that's still a ghost station at Stahnsdorf. Oh, and you know, the big forest cemetery along the way. Can't forget that. Next on our list is another round of, I guess it's technically an S-Bahn. Enter Ortenau, a municipality just to the east of Strasbourg and the French border. The S-Bahnist network existed here from 1998 to 2014 and certainly didn't follow along traditional German S-Bahn network conventions. At its peak, this system consisted of 8 lines, with several spurs, stretching from Offenburg to Aachen to even on one route all the way into France. I love cross-border transit. There is just one issue. If you Google S-Bahn Ortenau and look at schedules, you'll notice that none of the lines are given S-Bahn number designations. It's almost as if, and bear with me here, that these were all actually regional routes with the tender awarded to a private operator, and the operator's name was quite literally just Ortenau S-Bahn because they thought it looked good for marketing. I have a question, chat. Does that mean this was an S-Bahn? Is that one tram line in Switzerland an S-Bahn despite having an S number? Is the RegioStadtBahn system an S-Bahn? Am I an S-Bahn? The next one comes back a bit closer to home, though it's still pretty odd. This is the Hamburg S21 route to Friedrichsruh. And yes, this is a dedicated route because it's complicated. If you look at some older maps of the Hamburg S-Bahn network, such as this one from the mid-80s, you'll notice some funkiness. Along with the 6 main routes that served the city until 2023, there's some additional lines and spurs. There's the blue S5, which was a diesel-hauled train from Pinneberg to Elmshorn, and not to be confused with the modern route with the same color and name to Stade. There's the S4, which consists of most of the modern RB81 route, and is, yes, the same route that's in the process of being converted to a proper S-Bahn route, namely the S4. The S3 even had some rare spurs to the south, which were actually regional trains with S-Bahn denominations. This was a really common practice in Hamburg back in the day, until around the turn of the millennium. Integrated ticketing with regional trains and the metro wasn't really a thing. So if you wanted a more regional service to work with an S-Bahn ticket, you had to slap an S-Bahn number on it, or else you'd run the risk of all sorts of transfer shenanigans and zoning fun. The S21 route was especially weird. If you look at most of this route, you'll see it runs to Mula, same as the modern S2 does. But then there's this little lighter shaded extension one stop east to a station called Friedrichsruh, one that doesn't appear on any modern HVV maps. And that's because Friedrichsruh itself was a regional station, but one that hasn't been served in years. Yeah, this is a station that was left to rot by the railways all the way back in 2019 and not formally abandoned until 2022? What the hell? Is now a good time to mention that Germany has lost over 3,000 kilometers of rail trackage over the past 2 decades? There was literally a little diesel rail bus that went between there and Amula and back. But despite being a different train altogether from the normal S21 train, it was still listed on maps as the S21. Kind of reminds me of the Mattapan trolley in Boston with the whole different transit mode being listed as part of an existing route sort of thing. Let's talk about something that's more than a Metro S-Bahn line. Like the current Regio S-Bahn network in Bremen, it was meant to serve a huge surrounding area. And like the S-Bahn Karlsruhe, it was actually a Stadtbahn tram train system that just kind of happened to use S-Bahn line numbers, but also in this case was also listed as an S-Bahn in some documents, but arguably was not even an S-Bahn at all. But when the hell am I ever going to get to talk about this again? This is the Braunschweig RegioStadtBahn system. Ah, Braunschweig. This city already does so much well and interestingly. Great sausage spread, a cool steam engine at the Hauptbahnhof, narrow gauge trams that are unique size for Germany, and that have some sections that actually have dual gauge track. That dual gauge tram track is just for show though, as the standard gauge bits aren't actually used. That's actually a result of 2 different proposals. Number 1 was a proposal to just convert the tram network to standard gauge, just to make it more, well, standard among other lines in Germany, but that fell through. The other though was the RegioStadtBahn plan, which could share some trackage in the city center, but would also use dedicated existing rail right-of-ways to help speed up services. Planning for the RSB, as I'll call it, goes all the way back to 1998. There are going to be 4 lines labeled S1, 2, 3, and 10 for some reason, branching out in all cardinal directions from the city center. You'd be able to hop on an RSB train in Braunschweig and head to Goslar, or you could go to Bad Harzburg. You could head up north to Gifhorn, and on the most impressive stretch of routing, you could even head all the way up to Uelzen. Wow, now that's a city I'm quite familiar with, and it's so close to Hamburg. This seems like a route that would have done a lot of good not just for Braunschweig and the surrounding towns in Niedersachsen, but that would have had a ripple effect for commuters and day trippers extending all the way into Metro Hamburg. So, why did it get unceremoniously axed in 2010? Ah, the profit motive. Wait, really? This doesn't seem profitable? Look, I know the German government seems to be vastly afraid of things that could result in deficit spending, but this seems like something that really would have been a net public good. At least that's how it seems to me as someone who has traveled around Lower Saxony a ton over the past several years. But even beyond that, I hate this obsession with running public transit profitably. Does anyone ask if the highway is profitable? God damn, I sure hope my sewer pipes are turning a good profit this year. Ah shit, my local fire department had a bad Q4. It's just ridiculous to me. To use language I feel a lot of politicians and business people will understand, everyday people plus better, easier ways to get to work and access shops equals more money being circulated in the economy. Damn it, I need some wine. If anyone in power is watching this, maybe revisit this proposal. I think it'd do some good. And if there's a transit proposal in your area that you're sad about getting axed, make your voice heard. Advocacy matters. On to a lighter note, I guess the end of it video. Today's viewer question is simply, if this channel is called Tales from the S-Bahn, why do you cover German transit in general? And the answer is, so my spouse came up with the name and I really liked the ring of it, and I was like, wow, that's really good. I want to claim that. And as for why I cover trains in general, especially in particular here in Germany instead of just S-Bahns, I guess because it's my channel, and I figured as long as I keep it generally trains and transit focused, I'm good, right? What if I did a video examining all the different public transit modes in Lego City as like a subscriber special? Would that still fit with the general theme of the channel? You decide. Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna get that wine.